Hey everyone, and welcome to the Nerd Room, where we talk all things comics and movies. This is episode number 47, where we're discussing Doctor Strange. I'm your host, Tim.
I'm Sunjay.
I'm Troy.
And we're recording on probably one of the most important days in American history right now.
Ooh, what's happening?
They're currently deciding their next president, or emperor, however you want to put it.
American Idol style. I think they should have had Trump and Hillary sing a tune. Simon could have, gave his feedback, and then they could have had the results show.
This is literally the season finale of America right now.
Yeah, it's going down. Just X Factor and have the X buttons going all at once.
And by the time you guys hear this, the vote will be over, the dust will be settled, this whole ugly, bitter election will be done, completed,
I don't
whatever.
think so. I think it's still drag on.
We'll see. But one thing that continually comes to my mind is a quote from Revenge of the Sith, actually. It's from Padme.
Okay.
And she says, "So this is how liberty dies, with thunderous applause." So think about that. America, people are watching. The world is waiting. We'll have an answer at some point here. Hopefully there's not a civil war or something crazy like that.
Well, you know, they say, like, when you have a crazy leader, and times are bad, that's when you always get, like, the best art, right? Like, you have the craziest, like, politicians, you have, like, all the best, like, comic books and stuff, so... I mean, I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's not all doom and gloom, people. No matter what happens, we'll all be here on Thursday. And just remember...
Maybe.
Tim's a little worried. I have faith.
I just keep imagining myself signing up for the rebellion here in the next couple of days. I don't know why. Anyways, we're here to discuss the 14th Marvel Studios film since its inception in 2008. And it's Marvel's first step into the mystical, magical realm of comic book movies. Mm-hmm. And it had a huge opening weekend, scoring almost $85 million domestically.
Whew!
Raking in $325 million in the last 2 weeks globally.
Impressive.
Well, so they've already broke even, probably.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah.
And this tops openings for Incredible Hulk, the First Avenger, Iron Man, and Thor.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice.
So it puts it in front of all the other origin stories for the majority of Marvel's characters, with the exception of Iron Man.
Mm-hmm.
It's impressive. That's really impressive when you think about it.
Yeah, and it's getting great reviews. It's sitting at a 90+% on Rotten Tomatoes. A lot of people are favoring this. But coming out of this, the people that we saw this with, it was kind of divided, right?
Yeah.
So we went with, I think, 8 people,
Okay.
Troy and myself, and we came out of this, and the crowd was divided, which was interesting. People were kind of just like, yeah, that was a movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't anything spectacular special. I personally, I'm going to leave the recommendation to the end, but I may have came out on the more favorable side of that.
Yes.
And it was interesting seeing that contrast. And I was in the comic book shop the other day, and people were coming in and actively asking for Doctor Strange comic books, which I found really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Where's your Doctor Strange comic book section? And I kind of sat there and watched people for a little bit. And this is, I guess, what Marvel's trying to do to some degree, is bring people into the Doctor Strange comic book world as well. Because he's really being pushed more recently in the comics. And I'm having a hard time getting into it, but I do really enjoy going back and reading some of the old comic books.
It reminds me, actually, of a similar story with Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yep.
Same kind of thing. Went to the comic book shop later. Everyone's asking for more Guardians of the Galaxy comic books, right? Same kind of thing. Marvel knows what they're doing when it comes to these kind of unknown brands and expanding in the movie universe and having, the general comic book audience, or not, go out there and buy the comics, right?
Yeah.
And you've even been seeing that in the Legends lines as well. You've seen a lot of Doctor Strange characters, the comic book. You're seeing Benedict Cumberbatch in Legends form. So it's really good to see that they're expanding that Doctor Strange basis, because this is one of the characters they're going to be leading with coming out of Phase 3, when we probably don't have the standalone Iron Mans and Captain Americas and that to continue on the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, I mean, so Doctor Strange, he's one of those characters who's been around for a long time, but he hasn't really had, like, that big of an impact. Like, I can't remember the last giant Doctor Strange story. Maybe it's because I don't read that much Marvel, but I mean, he hasn't had a TV show or an animated series. He had that really bad 70s movie. I don't know if you guys saw it, but it's awful. Like, the worst. So, I don't know, like, he's one of those characters that, there's a lot of room for him because there's so much potential with the technology today, and you see that in the film.
Yeah, and he's been playing more of a supporting character for a long time in the comic books. You're seeing him propelled to the forefront more now so because of the movie, I think. He had a big part in Secret Wars, Marvel's last humongous event.
That's right.
He's got his own standalone. He's now got 2 ongoing series right now with Doctor Strange and the Sorcerer Supreme.
That's right.
And so you're going to see him coming to the forefront of Marvel, I think, for the foreseeable future. And with the results of this movie, I wouldn't be surprised if Marvel even tries to squeeze another Doctor Strange in Phase 3.
Yeah.
Or if it tries to do something immediately at the gates in Phase 4.
Yeah.
And we've had some great stuff with him in Iron Man 2 and most recently Secret War or Civil War 2, right?
Yeah.
Goatee Brothers. Yes. Right? You know what I'm talking about.
So we're going to be discussing this. So we're going to be discussing this movie from top to bottom. We're going to say major spoilers going forward here. If you have not seen the movie, you have been warned. We're going to spoil the hell out of this. Everything from the magical, mystical, and the relics and all that, right through to the post-credit sequences. One of the nagging things that I'm going to address here right off the top, and this is something that's been flying around the internet. We have speculated on this. We've tried to report on what Feige said and what the director said about where Doctor Strange actually takes place in the timeline of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There's been discussions of it happening as far back as Iron Man 2, right through the present day, and there's also been discussions of it more or less all happening in 2016. So I'm going to run through a quick line of evidence here, and I want you guys to try to pick this apart and see which side of the fence you lie on here.
Okay, I got my detective hat on. I'm ready to go.
And this is another exclusive Tim theory. Right?
Yeah.
So listen up.
So the big thing here that confused a lot of people is we had the name drop in Winter Soldier.
Yes.
And most of us assumed that he was an established hero at that point. Kevin Feige, president of Marvel Studios, or whatever he is now, has stated that that is not the case, that he was on Hydra's radar specifically because he was an outspoken, brilliant neurosurgeon. So, first line of evidence there.
Well, sorry, do you remember the context his name was used as well for that scene?
It was Agent Sitwell was on his knees, and they were talking to him, and he started just rhyming off people. Bruce Banner was also included in that list.
Like brilliance, right?
Yeah, about who Hydra had their eyes on.
Okay.
And they had a list of everyone from Bruce Banner, Doctor Strange, or Doctor Stephen Strange, all that kind of thing.
Right, okay.
Right. So he said that he was an outspoken neurosurgeon?
Well, he's just kind of... It's interesting because that was kind of the quote that Kevin Feige used. But when you look at Doctor Strange in this movie, he's very inward thinking, right? He doesn't seem to be the type of person that would be outspoken towards something that isn't going to affect him directly.
He's a dick.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't really buy that. I think that with that drop line that Marvel kind of wrote themselves into a corner, and this is just a way to back themselves out.
Yeah.
Because that's really the only point that draws any sort of confusion as to why Doctor Strange isn't part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe prior to Winter Soldier and that, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things that was dropped in the film here was the presence of Avengers Tower, right? So that sets up somewhat of a timeline. That puts you more or less into Phase 2, post-Avengers number 1. Had a long discussion with good friend Elliot about this, about when Avengers Tower actually became a tower. So we know for sure in Winter Soldier, because it's highlighted when Hydra's targeting different people, it highlights Tony Stark in Avengers Tower at that point. Theoretically, anytime post-Avengers, because you do see them kind of setting up the tower, the A is there and all that, right? So anytime from Iron Man 3 basically forward. So that kind of eliminates your Phase 1, I think, as far as the timeline that this is set.
And so they do show the tower, and it's still when he's just a surgeon, right? Like he hasn't got any mystical powers yet, so he's still a surgeon.
Just Stephen Strange.
He's just Stephen Strange.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And then Wong at some point here. This is where I'm going to get maybe a bit of conjecture as far as the exact timing here. 'Cause some of this you can argue either way. Wong at some point mentions that the Avengers are the protectors of the Earth. And I would argue that the Avengers aren't an actual fighting force protecting the world until Age of Ultron.
Yeah. I would say so.
They're not an established team in Iron Man 3 or Winter Soldier or anything like that. It's Age of Ultron that they are a fighting force that is recognized by a wider population. And then going into Civil War, they're still that same fighting force now, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So there's that mention, which puts you at Age of Ultron. And the next thing from Age of Ultron, Thor at the very end quotes that 4 Infinity Stones have shown up in the last few years. And he's, and this is part of his bathtub vision and all that type thing, right? And so, as far as I'm concerned, that's somewhat of a confirmation that the Time Gem hasn't shown up on the Asgardian radar. And I would assume, and again, you could go back and forth here with the post-credit sequence that Thor is kind of, there's wizards in New York now, right? That he hasn't really encountered the wizards or sorcerers or whatever you want to call them. So you could argue they wouldn't know that they had the Time Gem in that, but they do have the Orb of Agamotto in Odin's vault, so they're aware of at least Agamotto. I'm going to say that because the Time Gem hadn't been used yet, Thor isn't aware of it.
Right, okay.
That makes sense.
So again, that puts you at least post Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
And there's another kind of brief line of evidence here where when they're floating patients when he's driving the car before he's in his car accident, There's discussion of a colonel, a 35-year-old man with spinal injury. Some people have, thrown the theory out there that it could be Rhodey, a colonel, from Civil War, spinal injury. Age doesn't exactly line up.
Right.
The
Hammer doesn't line up either, right?
No, as far as the timeline, no.
Yeah.
The director has kind of thrown out there that that's not the case. It's not Rhodey, it's someone else.
Okay.
So that kind of debunked that. One thing I am stretching here, I need a second viewing here, and this is my last piece before we get into the actual review here. There is a scene when he's putting on his watch there, and I believe in the background there is a plaque that says 2016 on it. I need a second viewing to confirm that.
Right.
So my conclusion is, from all of these different lines of evidence and that, and I'd be interested in the listener's opinion here, I think this takes place predominantly in 2016.
Right.
By the time we're at the end of the movie, it's more or less present day, November-ish timeline, right?
So some months after Civil War events.
Yeah, or concurrently with it.
Right.
And that kind of maybe runs into issues with his training and why it's so short and all that sort of thing. But I think the evidence all points to at least post-Age of Ultron and maybe even shorter time
War,
frame.
because he does mention Avengers, and Avengers are pretty much disassembled at the end of Civil War. Right?
And there's no mention of the Sokovia Accords or anything like that. So I'm going to say kind of post-Age of Ultron-ish timeline, so into 2016 to some degree.
Yeah, and I think he's driving like a 202017 Ferrari in that scene anyway. So
was it a Ferrari or was the Audi?
Oh, was it an Audi? I don't know. I'm not a car guy.
Audi.
Okay.
Marvel seems to be.
So I think it was like someone said online it was like a 2017 car. So
yeah,
but I mean, Walking Dead just showing that means nothing. So
half the time you see Gotham, they're still driving like these 1939 Ford vehicles.
So that's more or less where I think it's going to sit, and I hope that alleviates some of the concern. It may just make it more confusing. But those are all the lines of evidence that I could really think of that kind of helped us place where this was, because they left it somewhat ambiguous here. They weren't really trying to tell you what portion of the MCU that, as far as the timeline that it was sitting in. There was no weird cameos. There's no off-screen mentions of the Sokovia events or what's going on as far as what happened in Civil War or anything like that. So it's somewhat ambiguous.
Yeah, I like that. It's kind of like it's more of a standalone film. It doesn't have these like connective tissues. It's it stands on its own, and I do like that.
So yeah, what we're going to do here is we're not going to really run through chronologically here the movie or anything like that. We're going to talk about some of the big highlights here. And one of the big things coming into this movie was the visuals.
Yes.
What did you guys think of the visuals? Specifically the scene where Doctor Strange is kind of falling through the dimensions when he first meets the Ancient One. And how do you think kind of all these layers of Inception-like imagery came to the forefront here as far as the movie?
Yeah, what a trip that was, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what an imagination these guys have to pull off all that stuff when his hands are turning into more hands.
Oh, that's so
hands.
Creepy. I was so
crazy.
freaked out.
Yeah, you know what? I must say, this movie is something you do have to see, 3D AVX kind of style, right? You really do benefit off of it. And I appreciate the visuals because they're kind of flaunting it, like, look, we can do this. We have the capabilities of doing this in 2016, but also made sense. I never felt like they were abusing the right to use these visuals. It made sense with a sorcery movie or magic movie, right?
Yeah.
So I really appreciate what they did with the effects. They looked great.
I thought the visuals were really good. I mean, it kind of felt like a Jimi Hendrix or, like a Beatles, kind of like a kaleidoscope on acid or something.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah, it's something I've never seen before in a movie. And as I said, or as Troy said, you got to check it out on IMAX. You got to see it in 3D or AVX or whatever. This is a movie that you have to see in theaters. Because the visuals are so great and so spectacular, I kind of question how this is going to transfer when it's on TV on, ABC or whatever, I think the visuals in here were the star of the show. I think without the visuals, you don't have a movie. The visuals stole it from me.
It really does enhance the experience. Yeah.
Yeah, it fully does, and I agree with you. You got to see this on the big screen here.
Absolutely.
Some of the visuals, though, for me personally, I think that whole psychedelic scene where he's kind of falling in and out, like you said, Kaleidoscope is like the perfect example of that.
Yeah.
That took me out of it a bit. I thought that scene was a little bit long, and I understand why they did that, and it's always the hesitation I have getting into the Doctor Strange comic books was that I can't get past the art sometimes. It's so far out there for me.
Yeah.
And this scene kind of did that for me. I understand what they're doing, what they're getting at, and they're trying to convey that this is something completely different and putting you on a different plane, an astral plane, if you will. But it kind of took me out. I felt that scene was really long.
It was pretty long, yeah.
Yeah, by the end of it, you're kind of like, okay, what's the point of this? We get it. He's like the Great One or the Ancient One. I can't even remember. is like, I have all this power. And so, yeah, I kind of agree. It did kind of drag on a little bit too long.
I'm curious to know if there was any Easter eggs throughout that whole scene, because it was such a big sequence. I mean, at one point I thought I saw Thanos, but I realized it wasn't Thanos. It was just the big bad of the whole movie there, right?
Yeah.
But I do wonder if there's any sprinkles. I was hoping maybe we'd see the Wasp maybe pop up somewhere to kind of tie in with that.
Or
exactly.
Eternity or something like that, because that's another big component of Doctor Strange too as well, right? It's the embodiment of eternity.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I'll have to see it again.
Yeah. Well, Troy and I definitely have to see it again, because when we went into the theater, speaking about the visuals here, the first scene, the opening sequence, we have yet to really appreciate, because we get into the theater at Cineplex here, and we pop on our 3D glasses, and the movie starts, and you get to the Marvel roll credit and all that, and everything's looking kind of blurry. I'm like, this is kind of weird. This is something I'm pulling on and off my glasses.
The Marvel logo doesn't look right.
Yeah. And I was like, what the hell is going on here? The whole first scene, they forgot to flip the switch or whatever it is to turn to 3D. And so the crowd was kind of getting restless, and you can't watch it, just killing your face, because it's just basically this flickering, right?
Yeah.
So we missed out on this entirety of this first opening sequence, this visually demanding sequence as well.
Oh, yeah.
And it even took me out of the movie for a bit. It took me a little while to get back into the movie, because you go from this epic scene that you're pissed off that you're missing into something that's a bit slower. You're building the origin of Doctor Strange. People are quite restless. People are still talking and all that. People are running in and out. You see the Cineplex staff doing all their thing. And it really bothered me. Like, it took me a while to get back into the movie. So I felt like my first 10, 15 minutes was spent kind of a bit ticked off. I was pissed that they didn't rewind it.
I was kind of robbed. Nobody even came out to apologize to the audience too, right?
Did you guys get free passes?
No, I should have spoke to them.
My wife said, you should just went and spoke. They would have given you a free pass. But didn't do that. And unfortunately, that did have a bit of an effect for me on my experience of the movie overall, because I feel like I missed out on that sequence.
It was a pretty great sequence. I'm not going to lie, guys. I really enjoyed it. That's why I went to the IMAX theater, because you always get good quality with IMAX. Yeah. Hook us up with free passes, IMAX. But yeah, I mean, from the opening scene, I don't know if you guys were even able to make this out, but the guy's head gets chopped off.
I definitely saw that.
Yeah.
It was a librarian's head, right?
Yeah, and I was just like, wow, this is like no Marvel movie I've seen before. I can't remember any other Marvel movie involving decapitation. Like, that hooked me, and it kind of felt like a James Bond film. Do you know how, like, their big action sequence is always the first sequence?
Yeah.
Like, it kind of drew you in. I was a little bit confused. I was like, I have no idea who the hell these people are or what the hell's going on, but it looks really cool, and I'm in it, so, let's have at her. So that's kind of my takeaway. But you definitely have to see it. That opening scene is visually stunning.
And throwing you right into the deep end there, because one of the big things with all of this is the magic, and we weren't quite sure how they're going to convey this to the general audience. There's some aspects from the comics that we understand as readers, but how to bring in someone that isn't familiar with kind of this mysticism, this magic of Doctor Strange. A lot of people are familiar with Harry Potter, right? And that's kind of how I thought they were going to bridge this, is use that aspect and leverage off of the Harry Potter audience and what they build as a foundation of magic, but they really didn't go that way. They completely avoided the spoken spells, which I can really appreciate.
Love that.
That really is difficult in the comics, because you can't read half of it.
Let alone pronounce that.
Yeah.
They didn't do anything too crazy. They more or less had only a few different moves they did. They had the kind of what do you call it?
Sling ring?
The sling ring fire thing that they did.
Yeah.
The bad guys had those ice crystal.
I love how they pulled those things out.
Yeah.
And then Doctor Strange had his whip and all that. So do you think limiting the amount of magic and the depth that they went to with the magic was appropriate for this origin movie? Like, we weren't seeing people turn into animals and kind of crazy shit, other than those few kind of psychedelic scenes that we did get.
No, I really appreciate it, because like I mentioned to you before a little while back, is like, I appreciate what they do with Harry Potter. I'm not a big Harry Potter person, but my biggest thing is when they cast these spells, and I always make fun of like abracadabra, even though they never mentioned that. So because there's so many different word plays to go along with that movie, I kind of find myself lost with like what spell they're casting. Whereas here was great because it's all hand gestures, how they pulled off their moves and the sorcery tricks, right? So I'm really glad the directors decided to go that route, because like you mentioned, in the comic books, when you're trying to read what he's trying to do and cast, it's a little bit of like a tongue twister. It's kind of crazy. So I really like what they did here with the hand gestures.
Yeah, I mean, it's appropriate. I mean, he's supposed to be just learning magic. I mean, we'll get into that a little bit later, but maybe in the sequel they'll probably like amp it up, or maybe for Infinity War, they'll amp it up. So it's a nice, little entry. I have no idea the limits of Doctor Strange's powers. Like, in the comics, does he turn people into animals all the time, or is he pretty much just transportation and weapons out of thin air kind of guy?
Yeah, more or less. His powers I don't think are very well defined. I think in the movie here they do a good job of saying this is kind of what he can do, and they use that and they convey that with the other sorcerers or doing a few other things. You see Carl Mordo doing, the stepping and the fighting and all that, and their abilities seem to be amped up a bit, but they all seem to be more or less focused around the sling rings and these kind of shields and all that they do. Doctor Strange's powers in the comics are somewhat limitless. There's nothing there that says he can't do anything, and they allude to this in the movie with all the different books and all the different spells that you can more or less do anything.
Kind of like a Scarlet Witch.
Exactly.
Oh, okay,
And that's one of the things with Doctor Strange is sometimes it's powers of convenience. When you need him to do something in particular, he's there to do that, and that's something that they leverage Scarlet Witch a lot in the comic books. Is that we need her to do this, so all the thunder powers can do that, and that's one of the limitations of Doctor Strange as far as how powerful he can be, because. And this comes in, I guess, with the Time Stone as well, is where do you put those limits on the character, on his powers, to make it so that there is some stakes left in the universe, and when he's fighting other characters, other individuals. And so I think they did a good job putting those boundaries on him and saying that he's just not this all-powerful sorcerer that can do anything.
Yeah, no, I agree.
What did you think of the cloak levitation here? We'll get into some of the relics here as we go through this, but how did you feel about this almost completely sentient cloak? And this is something we discussed last week, whether or not they're going to go down this path. This was a different take than I thought they were going to do with this cloak.
The cloak, to me, and, we're watching the movie, they show the cloak battling all the bad guys, and my wife turns to me and she's like, that's the magic carpet from Aladdin.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're right. Like, that's
Spot
totally,
on,
yeah. So it's like, provides some comedic timing. I have no idea if this is comic accurate or not, but I enjoyed it. It was kind of cool. I mean, you don't see a lot of heroes in the MCU with capes. It's more like a DC thing with Superman, Batman. The only one I can think of is Thor.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool.
Vision.
Yeah, Vision. Well, he just makes his cape. Like, what's that about? But I really like the look of the cape. It looks really cool. It looks kind of like Superman's cape from Man of Steel. And, I really like it that it's not just a cape and, like, he didn't just, like, go one day and he's like, I'm going to add this cape to my costume.
Right.
It chose him, and I thought that was really neat and a really cool take on it.
Yeah, it serves a purpose. I really like the cape. It kind of reminds me a little bit of, like, potentially that what you could do with, like, a BB-8 or an R2. Like, it has, like, feeling to it.
Yep.
So I'm hoping we get to see a little bit more of its character later on through the franchise. But I liked it. I like how the cape chose him.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool. The effects were great on the cape. And it kicked some ass throughout a couple of scenes there. So it's cool, man. Doctor Strange has to have the cape. I know a couple times in the comics they've kind of taken it away to change up his look. But I've always liked him with the cape and the high collar, right? That's the Doctor Strange.
And at one point he pops the
pops
collar.
it, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? It could have been really cheesy, but it actually worked for me.
Yeah.
You like
scene.
that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it kind of had the fawns. The going
Okay,
on, so.
to me it was like a little much because I think it was just after like the big battle in the Sanctum of New York, and then he pops the collar, and then it like droops down a bit, and then like he tries to like put it back up, and I was like,
see, that's what made it work for me because it looked cheesy, and then it kind of like played off of that. I was like, wait a second, bring it back here, right?
Okay, so for me, like the reason why like I kind of like not dissing it or anything, but I just thought like, you just had this like battle, people died and stuff, and then you're just like throwing in this like joke, like this one-liner. I was like, man, like
he's a doctor, he sees death all the time.
Yeah, I guess no, he doesn't because he always cures all his patients.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, that MRI scene, I heard someone online say that if you did an MRI with someone with a bullet in their brain, they would die. So
magnets.
Yeah. So come on, Marvel. I mean, that should have been a CAT scan or something. I don't know. I'm not a doctor or anything, but
Not a doctor. I really like the cloak. One thing that did for me really well was that when he's fighting Caecilius and the other zealots and all that, the cloak was what kept him alive.
Yeah.
He was an inexperienced sorcerer fighting very experienced sorcerers that had walked up and killed the guardian or whatever of the New York Sanctum.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden Doctor Strange is fighting them 1-on-3.
Right. Which is, brother Voodoo's brother, actually, right? That character. So that's kind of a cool Easter egg. Yeah.
oh, okay.
And the fact that they used this cape as the reason why he was able to fend off these villains for so long, I thought it was a really good way of explaining why and how Doctor Strange wasn't just all of a sudden this all-powerful sorcerer that's beating 3-4 guys that are much more experienced than him.
Yeah.
And Doctor Strange. Let's talk about Benedict Cumberbatch. Let's talk about Benedict Cumberbatch. Fuck. Let's talk about... Fuck.
The time jump's going on right now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Benedict Cumberbatch's portrayal of Doctor Strange, both from a neurosurgeon, egotistical maniac, into his kind of final redemptive
Selfless,
Doctor Strange, selfless human.
I think he nailed it. I mean, I really didn't care too much for Doctor Strange before the movie was made, but now I'm super excited to see him in Infinity War and see him interact with the other Avengers. So from that standpoint, he did an excellent job. He's just a great actor. I mean, who doesn't love Cumberbatch? So I have nothing but good things to say about his portrayal. I think, he was an excellent Doctor Strange, and I can't even think of anyone else they could have cast.
Yeah, he was awesome. I had my heart set on Walking Phoenix.
Yeah.
When they first mentioned him, I think Ryan Gosling was even in the running for it. There's a couple other people out there. And when they said Benedict Cumberbatch, I was like, yeah, that's kind of the easy choice because he's a world-class actor. He can do no wrong. But man, he knocked this role out of the park. He's so good. I can't wait to see more interactions with him and the other Avengers. I mean, seeing him with Thor already, I love the chemistry there. And he's just great what he did with this role. Him transitioning from like a dick doctor to the selfless hero that we now know him as. He did such a great job, and he's surrounded by other good actors as well. I really like the choice with Benedict. So good job with that.
Yeah, he embodies this role the same way I feel that Evans does, Captain America, Downey does. I think the casting here is just spot on. Yes. His accent was fantastic.
The look?
Yes, all of it. And speaking about the look, so he goes through this transition phase where he's kind of wandering through Tibet and all that, and he's kind of got the beard. And there's a lady behind us. I don't know if she was just really enjoying the movie or if she's a huge Doctor Strange fan, but when he shaved that goatee, she lost her mind.
Like, I laugh a lot, but this lady here is on another level of laughter.
She was gushing about it?
Yes.
She was, that was... Well, there's the cue,
They handled his origin story, I think, really well. I would have liked more time with him as the neurosurgeon. They really rushed that origin story, and then they kind of just skipped through a lot of his, just portraying him as this egotist, and I think contrasting him with Rachel McAdams' Christine Palmer character was
that scene he
really
had
well
with
done.
her, how he dismissed her.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Powerful.
I think
Ruthless.
they just got right to the car scene, more or less, where I would have liked to spend a bit more time with him, or him interacting with more people, and you get more of this resentment towards this character.
Yeah.
I always felt like he was kind of this suave, kind of a dick, but kind of not. I never felt that he was almost this Tony Stark, where you almost have disdain for him because, Tony Stark's selling weapons of mass destruction and all that. This guy he's selfish and he's out for himself, and he won't fix certain people because he's worried about tainting his record and all that.
Yeah.
But I never really felt like I didn't really like this guy, and maybe because I knew that the transition was coming almost right away. I don't know.
No, I wish we did get to see a little bit more of that, because they're talking about this banquet or whatnot he's going to go to. I want to kind of get like a speech of his, kind of like Bruce Wayne. I think in Batman Begins, when he dismisses his the party members, right? I wish we got a little bit more of that. Maybe in flashbacks we can go back and see how much more of a dick he was, because I do think, though, he is worse than Tony, but we got more time with Tony as his cockiness and arrogance, right? Tony had a better heart, I believe, than Dr. Stephen Strange. But yeah, I really wish we got more time with that character. But it makes sense, right, with the movie, and you got to speed up certain things, right?
I didn't feel like that. Up until the car accident, he was a little bit cocky and arrogant. But, I mean, he saved that person's life. He has the music in the operating room, and he knows music, so you have a little bit of, like, backstory there. He never really came across as, like, a jerk until the accident. And then he's trying to find, like, he's at his wit's end. He's trying to find a cure for his hands to work again, because that's what he loves. He loves saving people. And, to me, he never came off as kind of that Tony Starkish, standoffish, I'm selfish kind of guy. It wasn't until after the accident that you kind of see that coming out when he's like near the end of his rope. I had a different take on it than you guys for that.
See, I thought he was worse, because even Tony Stark in that cave, life-threatening, right? He still wasn't that much of a bad person. He was just trying to, get out of that cave, whereas it felt like as soon as Dr. Stephen Strange had that accident, he was horrible. He's even worse than ever, right?
This is paralleled from the comics as well, and him blaming other people for messing up his hands when he's to blame for the accident.
Exactly.
Right? And him being a dick towards the end here is a lot more desperation, I think.
Yeah.
As opposed to him before being this egotistical maniac. And I just don't think you get that vibe enough from it. And it's just a small nitpick. Like, I really loved his portrayal and all that in there. And it's almost my regret for not spending more time with him.
Yes.
But I get why they did. They had to speed up. They had a lot to get through here. And had to get him to that point of desperation. So he's out seeking kind of the mystic one and all that, or the ancient one.
Yeah.
Teach me.
Yes.
Yeah. No.
Quickly here, his costume. We had good looks at this in the trailers and from different magazine shoots and all that thing. Yeah. What do you think of it in action?
Loved his
Fantastic.
costume.
Yeah.
Loved it.
The
Yeah.
color scheme was great. The
Yeah.
blues, it wasn't too blue. The red's perfect.
Nice muted colors.
Yeah, and it's just such a nice look. It has, the Steve Ditko look, obviously, but also the current all new, all different look going on as well, right? So.
I feel like I'm on Fashion Police with Joan Rivers or something, like just criticizing his fashion choices. Oh, how he pairs the red and the blue together. Oh, it's gorgeous.
It could have really went sideways, though. This
Yeah.
could have looked really goofy, especially the cape. But they managed to fit it all into this believable universe.
Gloves or no gloves?
I like it without the gloves. Yeah.
Because the gloves do show up at the end, right?
Yeah.
The yellow gloves, which are classic Doctor
Yeah,
Strange,
that's
right?
true.
Yeah.
It did look funny though when he goes back into his proper reality and he's in like the hospital and he just looks so out of place, right?
Yeah.
Like this
Yeah.
weird getup.
Yeah.
I thought that's kind of
You
funny.
must look like a LARPer or something.
Can we talk about that scene for a second? Okay,
Yeah.
because you have Rachel McAdams' character. I forget her name. One thing this movie did that I didn't like was I didn't even know any of the names, but like halfway through the film, I was like, who's the bad guy again? But anyways, I digress. So you had Rachel McAdams' character, Christine Palmer?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Nailed it. And she's like, she gets Stephen Strange and she's in the operating table. Then all of a sudden you see like a ghost of Stephen Strange like appear out of nowhere. And in like 5 seconds she's cool with it. Like she must see some weird shit to be like okay with that after like 5 seconds. She's just like, whoa. And then she's like, oh, hey, Stephen, like, how's it going in the ghost realm? You know?
It would be weird, but I guess this universe has already been set with 13 movies beforehand. With,
I guess,
with
yeah.
aliens and
Yeah.
blind
Yeah.
people that can fight and web shooters and Iron Man and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I guess that makes sense. I'm just saying, if that was me and I
Yeah.
saw like a ghost, I'd be crapping my pants and out of there so
For
fast.
sure.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
But that scene itself is literally pulled off the pages of The Oath. That whole astral plane, him telling her, even the heart wound, he was shot in the comic books, not
Oh.
stabbed. The heart wound is the exact same, and he goes to her, and she is night nurse in the comic books, right? She's, I think, the third night nurse. And I don't think it's the exact character from The Oath, but all of that is just pulled right out of the comic books and put right into this. I really, really enjoyed that scene for that aspect, is that they're giving winks and nods and heavy winks and heavy nods to The Oath here throughout a lot of this, but particularly this scene here.
That's awesome. See, and that's why I love Marvel so much. Sorry, DC, because they pull so well from some of these comic book scenes, right?
Yeah.
They really transition them or translate them so well on the big screen. I love that. Even from I think Avengers when Iron Man's like kind of transforming into his Iron Man suit, it's like something right out of
Yeah.
Extremist, I believe.
Yeah.
So I love what they do there.
Oh yeah, and to me the best scene of that is Civil War when Iron Man and Captain America
Oh,
are fighting,
yeah.
and then you see the shield, and then
Exactly.
the lines up through the wall there. I mean, straight from the comic books. That I nerdgasmed to that.
Gosh.
This character that... Man! This character that Rachel McAdams played in Christine Palmer, I really liked what they did with her, because yes, she was a very minor character in the film. I liked two aspects here. One, she was never a damsel in distress. And two, they didn't force her into a love story. And I guess three, I guess it's a three-prong thing now. She wasn't involved in the final act of the movie. Like, she wasn't like a Natalie Portman or a Darcy or whatever that had to be present in the final act, in the final fight, and she weighed into it somehow. She wasn't the one up there tricking Dormammu or something like that,
Right, or
right?
carrying
Yeah.
a staff around to get it somewhere sacred and safe.
Yeah.
Lay off
Whatever.
BBS for now,
is that
okay? You guys have been laying into that movie
Did I just put in that
non-stop
movie?
since March.
Didn't realize.
Stop it, you two. It's a great film, okay? Just leave it alone.
Okay.
Thank you, Tim.
Anyways, it's a nice way to not use her like a character like Lois.
That's a new record, guys. 13 seconds before we bring up BBS again. Okay, it's a drinking game now, okay? Every time one of these guys, to my left and to my right here, mentions Batman vs. Superman, take a drink.
Well, you guys are going to be hammered.
Yeah.
No, so she did have a lot of impactful moments with Doctor Strange, and she humanized him to some degree, and she was also used, I think, to contrast him a bit. So she was the good doctor, if you will, right? The person that's helping in the ER, and that allows you to build some of that disdain for Doctor Strange while he won't come into the ER, and he won't help specific people. And again, that's straight out of the comic book origins, and I really liked how they used this character to not only contrast Doctor Strange, but also as someone that gives a bit of sympathy towards Doctor Strange. And it really helps you feel when she's dismissed in that scene, you really see Doctor Strange hitting rock bottom here, I think.
I can't remember who tweeted about this, but they said, like, the character of her, you could replace her with Darcy, or you could replace her with any other female characters in the MCU, and it just would feel the same. Like, there's just nothing special about her. I got like she's a nurse. She's not even a nurse, isn't she? Like a surgeon?
Yeah,
she's like one of the main surgeons, but like she never really comes across as like you don't really know too much about her. She's just kind of there.
I think that's done on purpose, though.
Yeah.
Like I think they've taken notes from other movies where there has been some impact from the female lead, and I don't like the aspect that you don't have a strong female lead that opposes Doctor Strange, but you do have the Ancient One in there, right?
Yeah.
So I think that aspect is filled there, and I just think that they handled this the right way, as opposed to trying to shoehorn her into certain acts of the movie to just have her there.
Yeah.
Lois Lane.
Take a drink.
All right, let's jump into some of his training here and some of the characters that influence his transition from a neurosurgeon into almost a full sorcerer by the end of the movie here. So Carl Mordo, he acts more as a mentor here, and they have a big spin on this character from the comic book. So he is traditionally more of an antagonist and one of Doctor Strange's arch nemesis, if you will, right?
Sinestro, like.
Okay.
Yes,
Oh,
exactly.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thanks for putting it in terms I can understand, Troy.
Yeah. Shout out to DC.
One of the big spins they did put on this character, though, and he's a disciple of the Ancient One. He's very loyal to her, almost blindly loyal to her, right? And he feels very betrayed when we find out that the Ancient One is actually drawing a lot of power from the Dark Dimension to kind of keep at bay a lot of the mystic evils in the parallel dimensions and all that. But he's really hurt when he learns this, and he feels betrayed by it. And towards the end of the movie, he doesn't really support Doctor Strange's use of the time gem. He doesn't like messing with natural law and all that. And he does kind of take a turn towards the end. And
A drastic turn.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll talk a bit about this when we go through the post-credit sequence. But this is a big turn on the character from the comic books. So when Doctor Strange is first introduced, the next issue you get Baron Mordo. And he becomes evil because he's jealous of Doctor Strange. And he wants to become Sorcerer Supreme. And he plots to actually kill the Ancient One and betrays the Ancient One. And they've kind of done a complete 180 here where it's the Ancient One that's betrayed Mordo.
Yeah.
And that leads to him eventually going down this path of villain, it seems, right? What did you think of the take on Baron Mordo and what Chiwetel Ejiofor brought to the character?
I thought he started off strong. You know, again, this is another great actor. He's incredible. And
It's from Love Actually.
Love Actually and Firefly, right? Serenity?
Oh.
Yeah, he's the villain.
I don't know.
Yeah, he's one of the villains.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Josh Whedon, right?
Oh.
So, 12 Years a Slave, too. I think he's nominated. But anyways, he
Wow.
starts off strong in the movie. He was really good. And then towards the end, he started losing his way. No pun intended. He started slipping for me, and I just felt his writing was a little weaker towards the end there. Do we know why they changed his name from Baron to Carl anyways?
Well, Baron is a title. And Carlos is actually named.
Okay.
I believe.
Right. So yeah, he's a little weaker for me towards the end, but I do like the chemistry that him and Doctor Strange have, and I do look forward to seeing him in the next installments. But I just felt he needed a little more tightening up towards the end of that movie.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, when he finds out the Ancient One's using, the dark mystic powers or whatnot, to me it felt kind of like a plot device. He's like, oh, why are you using this? And then she just walks away. I'm like, you could have just explained it, take 2 seconds, and then he's back on your side. Now you're dead. Now he's evil. It's all your fault, Ancient One.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that scene felt a little bit like rushed, and I felt like, he, especially the Easter egg scene, I mean, we'll get into that later, but he started off strong. He was really cool. When he throws the line, like, we're not savages, like, for the...
The
Wi-Fi. I love that.
Yeah, like, when they said it in the trailer, to me, it felt flat, but then in the movie, it worked because it was, like, placed better.
Yeah.
So that's one, I like that line, and, he had some humor to him, and he had some, like, gravitas. Like, he's like, fight like your life depends on it, because, it may very well be in the future. And I liked him, and then he just goes bad for seemingly no reason to me. It's just like...
it had a lot of that Green Lantern stench of Sinestro turning in the after credit scene, right? Where it's just like, what?
Yeah. You're like, why are you bad now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had some time to simmer on that aspect, because when I came out of the film, might as well just get into it now, the Mordo second post-credit sequence here. I thought, they Sinestro'd this for sure.
Yeah.
But when I thought about it a bit more, and I think I agree with you, Troy, I think it's the weakness of the writing towards the end of the film that hampers that post-credit sequence from being a bit more impactful. I think if they didn't go down the line where at the start of the movie he was more or less blindly following the Ancient One for everything that she did because she helped him get through whatever, right?
Right.
And immediately when he finds out that she's drawing on the dark dimension, he doesn't try to understand that.
Yeah.
And I think that was just to rapidly get him into a position where he was either leaving, departing the kind of the sorcery, or pushing forward with this villainous path that he's eventually going to take. And I think if they had to maybe push that a movie or two and allowed him to stand tall with Doctor Strange while still voicing his discontent with them kind of screwing with time and drawing on the dark dimension, but almost using the death of the Ancient One and the presence of Doctor Strange and Wong and trying to form something a bit different and not drawing on the dark dimension and using his powers to progress the sorcery as opposed to just completely leave it and abandon it. I felt that was very out of character for him to just turn his back on the Ancient One, on the sorcery, on protecting the Earth, right, from the dark dimension, from all of these threats.
Yeah, it's a little mishandled.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that, that second Easter egg scene, the first one I loved. The second one, I was like, this is so unnecessary. It doesn't even belong here. Like, that should have been the whole second movie, just setting up his turn. But now, in one scene, he's bad now.
Yeah.
I will say, I do like they didn't go down a predictable route that he was also in cahoots with Dormammu, right?
Yeah.
They could have very easily said that
I was expecting
he
that.
was feeding Caecilius stuff, and it was kind of this whole big plot against the Ancient One from the beginning. But I like the fact they spun the character, and it was the Ancient One that betrayed him in the sense that she was pulling him from the dark dimension, and he didn't like that. I do like that aspect of it, and I can see that he's going to be a good villain, a Loki-like villain.
Right.
Yeah.
And I love what Chiwetel Ejiofor did with the character. I felt that he filled that role really well. But again, I think, it comes down to this writing. Everything was just a bit too quick, a bit too compressed. They're trying to get through a lot of this universe. And that's actually one thing I wanted to bring up was, do you think that not having Doctor Strange as an established character like they're doing with Spider-Man, with Black Panther, hampered it a bit? Do you think if we had some of this already established to some degree, that we would have maybe not felt this was as rushed because it had more time to spend on backstory or progressing or spending more time with the sorcery and that? Or do you think because it's such a different universe that we need to spend the time setting the foundation as opposed to like a Black Panther where you can just say it's a different culture, but he's a technology-based superhero. We all know who Spider-Man is. We don't need that.
Exactly.
And I think that's kind of the direction I felt. How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, he's this world that's just so different. It wouldn't make sense just to throw in like a 2-second Easter egg there. And then you get like that rush feeling. I mean, I know a lot of people. I hate to bring this film back, but Batman vs Superman, you kind of got those like files with Aquaman, Flash, Cyborg kind of thing. Like, I'm glad they stayed away from that. And then it's a movie, so it's his first origin story. So of course they should go back and we don't have to just plot seeds like we do in like universe building. I'm glad that they took their time and they made this just one film instead of like trying to seed it in others. Like I know they had like the little throwaway gag from Winter Soldier, but that's just like a minor thing. Like that could have been anything. So I agree. I think they definitely did the right thing there.
Yeah, they handled it the right way. They definitely had to identify this character on his own movie, and not just the character, but the world that he lives in, right? They definitely needed their own movie to do it, because this movie for me, at one point, Guardians was kind of like the Marvel Star Wars in a sense for me, but now this movie's kind of taken that mantle where you have like the dark sorcerers, the good sorcerers, the chosen one, or not the chosen one, sorry, the ancient one is kind of like the Yoda, like, like these dark paths. I kind of feel like this is like kind of my Marvel Star Wars.
That's
almost,
cool,
right?
yeah.
So I really like what they did with this movie, but they definitely needed this movie to introduce Doctor Strange and the world that he lives in. So I like what the route they chose, because like you said, Spider-Man's established. We already know how his whole world works, right?
Yeah.
And Sunjay, you mentioned the comedy here, and Wong, one of the breakout characters I think in this film, was one of those comedic pivot points.
Yeah.
And did you think that the comedy landed a lot in here? Because our theater was howling through a good chunk of this movie. Like, a lot of these jokes landed with the general audience, I felt. And Wong, fantastic character as well.
Oh,
great, yeah. When he's listening to Beyonce, I thought that was hilarious.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. Here's the thing with the comedy. Some of it landed, some of it I thought was really good. But I've kind of already mentioned this before. I feel like, and this is more just like a pick on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I feel like a lot of times like there'll be like a serious scene or like a fight scene or something, with real gravitas towards it. and then someone will throw like a one-liner, and I'm like, man, like, why'd you have to say that? Like, that to me, like, that takes me out of the moment.
Tell it to the lady sitting behind me. 'Cause she ate it up.
You know, like, I want to be like, you know, I know they take this seriously, but sometimes it just feels like they're kind of just like winking and nudging at the audience when they have these like one-line throwaways, and I get why they do it, and it does make the movie seem fun and like it's enjoyable, and I did enjoy this film a lot. Yeah. Well, maybe not a lot, but I did enjoy this film. But that's one thing that I felt like, you know, he has like so many one-liners, like he's battling Caecilius in the New York Sanctum, and then he's like, Mr. Doctor, and then he's like, no, my name's Doctor Strange, and then he's like, whatever.
Strange.
Yeah.
I actually really liked that. I thought it was pretty funny. But you know, I agree with you completely, because that's one thing I liked, at least at first with the DC Universe, is the tone of Man of Steel. I like that it wasn't so funny.
Did you just say something nice about the DC
I'll always defend Man of Steel. I hold that movie really high. So I do wish, you know, at times with these Marvel movies, we could get a little serious, because Age of Ultron suffered a lot for that, in my opinion, is that it was just a little too hokey. Even the villain himself was a little humorous himself. So I do wish we could kind of tighten that up a bit. But this is one Marvel movie that worked for me all around. I actually really liked all the humor in every aspect of this movie.
Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I think Winter Soldier had the right amount of it, and Civil War too. Civil War maybe a little bit too much jokes, but
no, it's perfect.
Absolutely perfect.
But to me, like, you know, like, it's like Civil War was like on the line to me, and I think this one was like crossing the line for me.
I agree with you that sometimes that they use the comedy a bit too much to break tension in scenes. Yeah. We also have to remember we're dealing with ridiculous concepts here. And I think the comedy allows you to bridge some of that and make it a little more believable in your head. Yeah. And I think that the timing on all this was much better than a lot of the movies that have had the missteps. Particularly, I'm talking about Thor: The Dark World. Right?
Yeah.
A lot of missteps in the comedy. They've really tightened it up here, and I think it hit every single joke in there.
Definitely.
I personally laughed at, and a lot of the crowd laughed.
For sure.
Yeah.
I
And
agree.
so that is my kind of peer review of the aspect that the comedy's hitting here, and people have come to expect this. And I agree with you. When it needs to be serious, it had maybe not so much in this movie, but in Civil War and all that, Winter Soldier, they do hit that tone. But this has become part of the ingrained experience of watching a Marvel film is the comedic aspect of it. And I think if you remove that, it doesn't feel like a Marvel movie. This has just become what it is now, right?
Yeah.
And we have the Netflix series, right? We have the Netflix series for like the serious stuff. So,
but like, doesn't that then become in danger of being too formulaic? You got like the setup, the origin, the fall from grace, the forgettable villain, you know, then the comedy, great action sequence, roll credits, give me $1 billion.
Well, yeah, the enemies, the villains could use a little tightening up.
Yeah.
But you know, the Marvel comics, even reading like Civil War 2 and these things, they're funny. Like that's the Marvel. That's how it's always been, really.
Yeah.
Spider-Man from the
little Spider-Man,
Deadpool,
totally.
all these guys, right?
Like maybe that's just Doctor Strange comic. You know, I haven't read any Doctor Strange comics, so maybe that's just like how he is portrayed in the comics. But I'm kind of thinking something more like serious, like, you know, like Watchmen or V for Vendetta. Like, I don't think this is ever gonna, you know, get like that serious tone. So maybe in that aspects, they purposely went for that.
Yeah. Maybe get a Blade movie.
Yeah.
I think, Troy, you hit on the nail on the head there, though. Go to the Netflix if you want serious, right? If there's a little bit of comedy in there, but it's pretty dark, pretty violent. The villains, Troy, you brought them up. And Sunjay, you did mention the constant trope and the issue that a lot of people bring up with Marvel Cinematic movies is the forgettable villain.
Right.
Yeah.
And Caecilius, does he fall into this trap of the forgettable villain for Marvel?
He's a little bit better than the last ones we've gotten. A great actor, again, to play this villain. But again, I liked him. He wasn't bad, but he had a little bit of the Ultron going on for me too, where I'm just like, oh, can you just get a little serious here?
Yeah.
But he worked for me though. I did appreciate him a lot more than what we've had in like Malekith and Ronin. Like I did like him more than those two villains that we've had. Yeah.
I thought there's potential. Like there's a scene when they're in. I keep coming back to the scene because I think it's the best scene when they're in the New York Sanctum. And he's talking about Dormammu, and he's making some good points, you know? He's saying, like, Dormammu's not this bad guy, you know? And I was like, okay, yeah, like, Doctor Strange, maybe he's going to go to the dark side, or maybe, you know, he's going to sway. And then, like, it never really gets brought up again, and then the next thing you know, he's, like, going with Dormammu. I'm like, what? Like, I don't know, I feel like the character had potential, and he could have probably been, like, one of their top 5 Marvel villains, but to me, it just felt a little bit flat. Like, there wasn't just enough substance. I mean, we're first introduced, he's cutting off someone's head, stealing this book, I have no idea what's going on, who this guy is. I've never seen this guy before in my life. I don't know the characters, and then the next thing you know, he appears like 20 minutes, half an hour later. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot, you're here because you want to steal the book? I guess. I mean, to me, it seemed, just talking about Caecilius, it fell a little flat. What do you think? What do you think, Tim?
Yeah, I have to agree with you that his motivations were a bit thin. But I think I can try to bridge some of this because his motivations were explored in the prequel
I
comics.
was just going to ask you about that, right?
Okay.
So after losing his wife and his unborn child, he seeks refuge in Camartage and seeks the teaching of the Ancient One to try to bring back his wife and unborn child from death. And the Ancient One doesn't really teach him this, but he then finds out that she's drawing other power from the Dark Dimension, and he gets kind of pissed off, and he kind of turns against the Ancient One because she isn't giving him, allowing him, or teaching him all of the potential powers that he might need to save his wife, right? You see the other sorcerer, the guy with the back injury, who's using magic to fix something, right? And so it's, again, expanding a bit more on that aspect and bringing someone back from the dead.
Right.
And so she's not sharing all her knowledge with him, and he doesn't like that. And that's where you see the spin-off. And that's where you see his motivation change as far as him splitting off from the Ancient One and kind of leaning more to the side of Dormammu.
I appreciate that. And that's actually a pretty good prequel comic book.
I was going to say, why the hell wasn't that included in the movie?
That's really good.
Yeah, I would have enjoyed the character a lot more if they put that in.
Well, it's a missed opportunity. There's a couple throwaway lines that they could have chucked in there that just would have explained his motivations. And that's sometimes a problem with Marvel villains is you don't completely understand their motivations. They want to turn out the lights like the Dark Elves, or there's a few other things that you just don't quite get. They want power for power's sake and to destroy everything just to destroy it, right? And you get a little bit of that vibe off of Caecilius. But I think reading the prequel comics helped me bridge that gap a bit more, and I understood what the character's motivations were going into it. And that allowed me to kind of say, yeah, he's just not doing this to be bad. Right?
Yeah, no, I would have appreciated that.
Yeah. And then the other villain here, Dormammu.
Yes.
So this is someone that just kind of shows up towards the end. He's not so much pulling the strings like we thought. His physical form isn't present. We don't see the flaming skull and the head and all that. He's mo-capped by Doctor Strange.
That's
by
right,
Benedict
Yeah.
Cumberbatch. What did you think of this kind of final action sequence here, where we do have Doctor Strange's interaction with Dormammu and the time gem here?
Yeah. I loved it. I really appreciated what they did with this scene, because this is where Marvel kind of changes the stakes a little, right? Because we've seen over and over again in these movies where it's like, here's the villain, here's the good guy, and he takes him out by, hitting him over the head with something, or basically he just has the off switch in most of these movies, right? But in this case, he had the bargaining chip for him, and he kept playing it over and over again, and it drove him to the point where he's like, okay, I'll do it your way. And I really like what they did, and I thought it was kind of funny. And I thought it made sense for the movie. And, it was great. It's cool to have Benedict Cumberbatch verse himself there, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's something different. It's something that I never saw before with the Keep Coming Back. So I thought that was kind of cool. The scene where he turns back time with the time gem reminded me totally of Superman 1, when Superman flies around the world and then it goes back in time. That's the first thing that hit my mind. But I really did like it because it wasn't just like, okay, like this giant CGI battle, and then so in that aspect, I thought it was pretty interesting choice and pretty different, and to me, it worked.
It had a bit of the Edge of Tomorrow kind of effect too, right?
Oh yeah, totally,
I like that.
Yeah. Groundhog's Day, Bill Murray shows up. He's like, the Cubs win the World Series, man.
And the director Scott Derrickson said they used Benedict Cumberbatch as the mocap because it's supposed to be a reflection of Doctor Strange himself, right?
Yeah.
It's that Dormammu has no use for a physical form in a place that there's no time or anything like that in the Dark Dimension, so he just paralleled himself off of what he's seeing in Doctor Strange, and that's why we don't get kind of the big flaming skull head. Maybe eventually we'll get something like that down the road, but I did like Dormammu. I did like this scene. It was really cool. I liked how they kept coming back, and they kind of telegraphed this early on when Wong's discussing about getting trapped in a time loop and that whole Apple scene with the time gem.
Which
that was
great.
Cool, yeah.
Really cool, and I like the use of the time gem here. But speaking about the time gem and Infinity Stones, so the use of the time gem in here, I think it was slightly mishandled, personally, from my perspective. I like that it wasn't used as a MacGuffin. It wasn't something that Caecilius or Dormammu was out there chasing, so that contrasted a bit from other Marvel movies where we do have them chasing the Power Gem, the Tesseract, or Loki Staff and all that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
The thing with the time gem that I didn't like the use of, and this comes into this scene as well as the Hong Kong kind of reversing it all, there's no consequences in this, right? And it's difficult to have any sort of stakes in a movie when you can just reverse time.
Yeah, I agree.
I would have liked to have set up some sort of boundaries that the time gem draws on power from the multiverse, and by using it, you're destroying another part of the multiverse, or it has some sort of adverse effects on the user itself, or something to that degree, because you're eliminating some of the aspects, I think, going forward when Thanos gets a hold of these and eventually, say, Captain America dies and whoever, it just turned back time. So they need to set some sort of boundaries on the time gem to say, this is how we can use it, and we only have one wielder, or something to that effect, that they just can't use it, or go into the effects on the time stream a bit more, that, you know, universes are folding now in on each other because they use that, or have Barrymore have a throwaway line that says, like, you've used this now, so we have to go and like save these universes because everything's collapsing in on itself. You just need the consequences there.
Yeah, some kind of penalties. And like I mentioned to you before, it's kind of like, you know, Flash does such a great job, at least in the comics and whatnot, handling like the Flashpoint universe and the Speed Force, right? You can't abuse it because it's a butterfly effect.
Yeah.
I really think they need something very similar in this universe too, and maybe we will see that in the next movie. Maybe something will come out of it and someone's dead now because he's abused it, or someone's brought back, like a Quicksilver or somebody. I don't know, but
interesting.
But I hope there is some penalties, because it would suck, you know, if they brought back Iron Man over and over again and say, oh, we recast Iron Man because of the time gem, right? So
that's true. I never even thought of that. They probably will do that.
Probably. So what do you think, Sunjay?
Is that comic accurate? Like the Eye of
no.
So that's not a gems or Infinity Stone?
No, it's the Eye of Agamotto's kind of, I guess, holding it, and it's the Infinity Stones seem to be, at least in this universe, they're always encased in something, whether it's the orb or the Loki scepter and that sort of thing. And that's just maybe so the wielder can hold it, as opposed to it actually just holding the gem and exploding in their hands or whatever.
Right.
But the Eye of Agamotto is just it's a relic. Agamotto is one of the three kind of ancient sorcerers or powers in the universe that a lot of the mysticism and magic is drawn from, at least on the light side.
Yep.
And so you get like the Orb of Agamotto, the Eye of Agamotto, and these are relics that do contain some sort of power and all that sort of thing. But it's not an Infinity Stone in the comic book. The Infinity Stone is its own thing.
Going off with Marvel, though, because they, you know, recently with their comic books, they have kind of set up penalties for these heroes that have been constantly toying with the universe, right? Like we've had it. That's why we've had the new, basically all new, all different, right? So hopefully, playing off that, we will get penalties in these movies, and if not, maybe we can get Kang the Conqueror out of this, right?
That'd be
he's
cool.
a big time drifter himself.
Do they have the rights to him?
They do.
Okay.
They should. I don't think he's a Fantastic Four guy. I think he's an Avenger.
He's at least in the early few books of Avengers.
Yeah, so I think we could get him to show up.
So are all the Infinity Stones found now?
Nope, that is number 5 of 6.
Oh, so we're missing
the Soul Gem or Stone or whatever it's called in this universe.
So Vision has one. The Guardians of the
Vision
Galaxy
has the Mind Stone.
Okay.
Guardians or the Nova Corps have the Power Stone.
Okay.
The Reality Stone was the Ether.
The Ether.
Oh, the red one
from the
Dark
red.
World.
Dark World.
Yep. The Space Stone is the blue one, the Tesseract.
Okay, from Captain America: First Avenger.
And we have the green, the Time Stone, and what's left is the Soul.
So where's
Which
that
is
going to
yellow?
show up?
Or no,
I don't know
Vision's
what color
is
that
yellow,
is.
I think.
It's indigo. So where's that going to show up? Because there's how many movies until Infinity War?
I can't remember. There's a handful of movies before Infinity War. Let's say 3 next year. So there's 3 movies, I think, before Infinity War, maybe 4. The obvious place that it show up is in Guardians of the Galaxy. Maybe as part of Ego the Living Planet. Like the Soul Stone is part of what makes the planet sentient.
Right.
The Soul Stone is either... I can't remember if it's the mind or the soul that's always associated with Adam Warlock as well, which is another
his forehead.
Guardians-esque character.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we wouldn't see it show up in like Wakanda, I don't think.
No.
That-
The other option is Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they're kind of using that again, eh?
Yeah, you've used that type of MacGuffin in previous movies, so it's got to show up. They could also just leverage Infinity War for collecting the Final Stone, right? Not really giving it a backstory or anything like that. Just saying, hey, I've got it now.
Or Uncle Ben gave it to Spider-Man before he died. He's like, here you go, Peter.
Yeah.
It's all yours.
Here's the ancient relic.
Yeah. Great power, great responsibility.
Turn back time, save my life.
Literally great power.
It'd be kind of cool if it showed up in Black Panther and then have like that stone like power the whole country or something like that, because they're the advanced civilization. But it'd be cool to see it, come up in Infinity War as well.
I just can't see another Infinity Stone being on Earth.
On Earth, that's the thing.
Like, you need to have one in another part of the universe. I know that maybe Earth is being used as this kind of nebulous for activity in the universe and all that, and that's why you have Thanos coming here to collect the majority of the Infinity Stones, but I'd like to see it used in either a Ragnarok or a Guardians.
That's why it'd be cool if we had Fantastic Four, because then it could be like in the negative zone or something, right?
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Overall, what did you guys think of the action of this movie? So we talked about the visuals, we talked about the magic. How do you think it all blended together to bring a fun, action-packed comic book film?
I thought they were great. There's something that you haven't seen since Inception with the whole, like, what you call it, landscape turning and, you know,
yeah,
the
and they
portals.
nailed a couple of those scenes right from Inception, right?
And I think it was even better than Inception. The technology's gotten better. So, like, some of those scenes where, like, the different buildings are moving and then, like, they tilt the whole universe. Like, that was really cool. And then there's, like, the cube of water or, like, this road. It was just really cool visuals. The fight scenes I really liked. The one action thing I'd like to see more of was Doctor Strange's transformation from poor sorcerer to sorcerer supreme. Like, that whole sequence, like, the whole action scene. So he gets back from Mount Everest, and then the next thing you know, he's, like, a brilliant magician, or sorcerer. And you're just like, where's the in-between? Like, I would have liked to see, like, a 80s montage set to, like, music or something.
Oh,
like,
he's on top of the mountain saying, like, Adrian.
Yeah. Or, like, have some... Yeah. Have some sort of, like, montage where he, like, slowly gets better, where he, like, tries to do something and it doesn't work, and then he does it again and gets a little bit better. Something like that. I don't know. Like, maybe they didn't have to montage it up, but just something to see some progression. I just thought that was kind of rushed.
Okay, to wrap it up here, post-credit sequence. So we've already discussed the Barrymore end credit sequence where we do see him walking this path to villainy and stealing the sorcerer power and kind of using it in himself. So we do see this villain building for the future, setting the foundation for a more well-developed villain in the Doctor Strange universe. But the first one here was a Doctor Strange Thor post-credit sequence. I really enjoyed this scene with Thor. I thought it was a great way to segue into Thor Ragnarok. We get a little hints at what's coming down the pipe here as far as Odin and Loki and Thor's presence in New York. And this is something that we've seen from set photos for those of you that have seen them. So you do have an idea that this is coming. And I like that it appears that Doctor Strange is going to show up at least for some sort of glorified cameo in Thor Ragnarok.
I agree. I mean, this film has my favorite Marvel Easter egg in this Doctor Strange and Thor scene.
Oh, wow.
And my least favorite with the Mordor scene. So it's kind of two ends of the spectrum. I love this scene. Yeah. Everything from Thor drinking the big beer stein and then it getting filled right back up again. I thought was hilarious.
Yeah, a little wacky. But
yeah, like that humor worked for me. I mean, you know, they're just like shooting the shit, just two guys. Like, that's totally how it would be too, right? If you had two, like, beings of this much power, and then he's like, oh, and then your brother Loki, and then he's like, so then once you get it, you're gonna leave Earth, and he's like, yep, and he's like, all right, let's go. I was like, man, Thor Ragnarok's gonna be so swick.
Whoa,
I just like tried to say like sweet and sick, so it's so swick.
Yeah, no, it worked for me too. I like what they did, and again, it's always great to see the upcoming chemistry that Doctor Strange is going to have with his fellow Avengers, maybe, right? So that was always good. I feel like this is kind of what Shane Black wanted to do with Iron Man 3, when Dr. Banner and Iron Man are kind of talking, because I didn't really care for that after credit scene.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is kind of like what they were trying to reach. And Taika pulled it off in this scene here. So it is great, short and sweet, right?
Yeah.
Gives a little insight as to the feel for the Thor Ragnarok movie. Mm-hmm. And this movie is turning out to be something that I cannot even put my finger on, because we saw the rap video, which had this cosmic, colorful junkyard. We see this scene, which we have an earthbound Thor, Loki, and Odin with Doctor Strange. And then we have Ragnarok and Hela that really gives you the sense of an apocalyptic. This is a much lighter toned movie than I thought it was going to be, at least from the early indications that we've gotten from what we've seen here. And it may take a big tonal turn, but then you also have to throw in Hulk and Banner in there too, right? So this movie is going to be packed.
It's very ambitious, right?
Yes.
I mean, they're reaching a lot of things here, and I hope they do it, because it's kind of like go big or go home, right?
It could turn out to be Amazing Spider-Man 2, or it could turn out to be Avengers.
Definitely.
Yep.
Let's throw down our recommendations here, guys. Do you recommend Doctor Strange? Troy?
Yes. Go out there and see this movie. Like I said, this is like my Marvel Cinematic Universe meets Star Wars a little bit. Great actors across the board. Great action. Awesome visuals. Probably one of the best visuals we've had in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, yeah, it's a must-see, man. I love this movie. It's pretty high up there. It's not Civil War, it's not Avengers, and it's not Winter Soldier. But I mean, shoot, that's pretty good to be under. So
wow.
It's high up there for me. I really love this movie. I didn't have the best or the highest expectations going into this. I'm not much of a Doctor Strange guy, but man, I got a couple legends now of this character, and I'm fully invested in the Sorcerer Supreme. So go out there and check it out, and make sure it's 3D.
I say check it out in the theaters. It's definitely going to look better in theaters than when you bring it home on your digital code or DVD or Steelbook or Blu-ray or Blu-ray 3D or VHS. 4K or VHS. Yeah. I didn't enjoy it as much as you did, Troy. For me, it's one of my weaker Marvel films. I think the visuals carried this film. The acting, too, was on point. Just so many scenes that I was just questioning. It was definitely a good film, but was it great? Was it, maybe my expectations are too high with these Marvel films nowadays, but to me, I was expecting a little bit more, and it just felt a little bit flat. Not to say I didn't enjoy it. I definitely had a good time in the theaters. But there's something about the film that was just lacking for me. Maybe it's just the progression, or it just felt a little bit rushed. And again, the villains were poor, but the visuals were great, and the acting, especially Benedict Cumberbatch, was fantastic. So if I had to give this a rating, I would probably just give it a 6 out of 10. But I'd definitely see it in theaters because the visuals.
Will you get the Steelbook, though?
Absolutely.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
I've got the Steelbook. I'm trying to get all the Marvel Cinematic movies in Steelbook. So this is a good point. This is a good time to bring up the Steelbook. So you can already pick up the Steelbook in the UK or Germany. You can pre-order it. And the rumor going around the internet is, okay, Marvel, their Steelbooks, they always like to give you objects, right? So you had Guardians, you had the cassette. And then Ant-Man, you had like that little disc or that little like memory stick. So this is what the rumor is of Doctor Strange. The Steelbook's going to be one of the Ancient Ones books.
Ooh,
so
nice.
It's going to look like, like the one that they got stolen, like Cassilia stole. So what are your thoughts? Is that a good choice? With all these visuals, do you think they should go with that?
I think so. You can nicely emboss that.
Yeah.
I think it'll look nice.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it looks cool.
Tim, what are your thoughts?
I really enjoyed this movie. I checked my expectations at the door here. I was really careful about watching trailers because I didn't want to spoil a lot of the visuals, and I was really happy I did that because coming into this movie, I didn't really know what it was going to look like. I know it was going to have this Inception feel, but I was really enthralled by what they put to the screen. I agree with you, Sunjay. I think it does suffer a bit from being an origin movie, but we also have to remember, this isn't Civil War. This isn't Winter Soldier. I think this was better than Ant-Man. Personally, I enjoyed it more. It felt like it was more in the cinematic universe. I think they were on point with introducing the mysticism, the magic. They allowed it to be somewhat grounded and allowed the general audience to understand it. I don't think they made it too complex. And what they did with the time gem and the supporting cast from Wong to Mordo to Christina Palmer, I think they nailed the supporting cast here. The villains, yes, on the weaker side, but sometimes with these Marvel Cinematic movies, I find that they've put so much emphasis and focus on developing the hero that the villain falls by the wayside. And I think that's okay for an origin story movie. It's not about the villain, right? The villain is going to be a reflection of the universe that they're building, and so they're going to use another sorcerer and that type of thing, right? So I can forgive that. The arc was great for Doctor Strange. Visually, again, fantastic. This is a high recommend for me. Like you, Troy, this isn't up in the echelon of Winter Soldier or anything like that. I never expected it to be. I think Marvel has got another hit on their hands. They've got another franchise here. It makes me really confident for going into Phase 4. The characters are going to be carrying this universe and taking the baton here from Iron Man and Captain America. I'm really happy with this. And yeah, great. Go check this out. I agree with you guys. 3D really is justified here, and one of the few movies that I will say justifies going and checking it out in 3D. But yeah, so it looks like across the board here we have a recommend. Yeah, varying degrees, but a recommend nonetheless for Doctor Strange.
See, I disagree. I think Ant-Man was a stronger film than Doctor Strange. I like the microverse, the characters, the humor for me worked better in Ant-Man than Doctor Strange. I expected them to take Doctor Strange a little bit more serious than Ant-Man. I thought, of course, the humor. I thought the fight scenes in Ant-Man were done better, and you had a better villain in Ant-Man. So, be curious to hear your thoughts, Troy.
Yeah, I think this is probably my favorite origin story next to Cap. I like it more than Iron Man. Yeah, I really enjoyed this movie.
Wow.
Iron Man's is great, but the thing is, Cap for me watching Civil War and Winter Soldier makes you appreciate Cap 1 so much more than watching Iron Man 2 and 3.
Agreed.
And I can't wait to see what we get out of Doctor Strange, because right now this is my second favorite origin story.
Wow.
So you're in good hands with this, no, pun intended. You're in good hands with this movie, yeah. So go and check it out, man. I love this movie.
All right, let us know your thoughts. Doctor Strange, Ant-Man, or, if you saw Doctor Strange, let us know. Did you really enjoy the film? Is there something that you didn't like, or did you want something that you thought they could have done better? Or what did you really love about this film? Let us know your thoughts. You can tweet us, you can Facebook us, you can Foursquare us, you can write us in a
Morse
letter.
Code?
Yeah, you can Morse code. You
Yeah,
can fax us in your questions.
Yeah.
You can Pony Express us.
You can also hit us up at hashtag Enter the Nerd Room. Like Sunjay said, our Twitter handles are at the end of the episode.
That's right. See, this is why I don't do this. This is why I leave it to Tim. You can smoke screen us. Some smoke signals like in Lord of the Rings.
You can also leave your comments on the YouTube page.
That's a little bit easier than smoke signals, but we would respond to smoke signals.
Yeah. We'd also really like to hear your thoughts, opinions. Did we miss some of the Easter eggs in here? I know there's some people that talked about a Captain Marvel Easter egg when he's kind of going through the different patients about this younger girl that's got a chip in her head and struck by lightning. Don't really like that. I like the Kree origin for Marvel or for Captain Marvel, so I'm going to step away from that a little bit. I think maybe people are reading into that a lot. But if there's something we missed, if you guys really enjoyed this movie, if you hated this movie, let us know. We'd love to discuss that a little more on the next episode and going forward. Next week, guys, we're going to be going through all the news that we missed from the last 2 weeks, specifically the Wonder Woman trailer, the Batman Lego movie trailer. There's a lot of stuff coming down the pipe.
Young
Justice. Deadpool composer.
Yes, Deadpool composer. Young Justice Season 3 coming out.
Yeah.
Marvel just dropped a whole bunch of new number ones. So we're going to have a lot of stuff to wrap up and discuss next week. So make sure to tune back in on Thursday. And if you're a fan of Star Wars, specifically Star Wars Rebels, we have another podcast that airs every single Monday that discusses Star Wars Rebels, each new episode, as well as kind of goes into the larger context of Star Wars from time to time, as we do have a tendency to go on little side tangents into the novels, comic books, and films.
Lots and lots of good stuff to talk about, guys. So be sure to tune in on Monday and Thursday to get your nerd fix.
Yes.
Yep.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
It's been an absolute pleasure discussing Doctor Strange.
This is like the first movie you've enjoyed, Tim, since Civil War.
I enjoy some films. I find myself maybe overly critical sometimes. But all right, guys, until next week for the Nerd Room, I'm Tim.
I'm Sunjay.
I'm Troy.
And thank you for entering the Nerd Room.
Door close, you will. See, that's the Yoda.
That's the Yoda.
Yeah.
Star Wars reference in the
you
Doctor
go.
Strange episode.
Nice.
Stranger things have happened.
Sprinkle a little bit of that Star Wars flavor in here, right?
Oh, yeah.
We are out. Don't forget to subscribe and rate and review us on iTunes. You can find our hosts Tim, Sunjay, and Troy on Twitter at TheNerdRM, 1912 Podcasting, and Troy, The Boy, 87.